last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. It's okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as
Nice,
simple
Ryan.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
You're listening to Random Fit with hosts Wendy Batts and Ken Miller, winner of a Gold Markham Award for Digital Media.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts here with my friend and co-host, as always, Ken Miller. Ken, how are you?
I'm great, Wendy. How you doing? You looking good?
Oh, thanks. I am doing great. Today, we are going to do episode 1. We're going to do a series. It's going to be over 3 different portions of Maslow's theory. It's his hierarchy of needs. This theory came out in 1943, and we are going to be talking specifically more on building your foundation. And when you think about coming in your fitness journey, there are certain things that you need to do, certain things in life that we have to have. And so we're going to start really thinking about the 5 different levels, kind of like the OPT model, if you will, Ken. See the similarities there? However, instead of 7 phases of the OPT model, we're going to be talking about the 5 phases of the hierarchy of needs. And you were the one that brought it to my attention and said, hey, we can do one on fitness. We need to do one on performance. We need to do one on wellness. So why don't you kind of talk a little bit about what the hierarchy of needs is?
Well, what Abraham Maslow came up with, and again, you and I discussed this, Wendy, but as I was going through some old college textbooks, I was taking out my psychology book, and one of the chapters was on Maslow, and I forget what the chapter was about, but it talked about Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. And with the initial hierarchy that he developed, started off as 5, a couple more were added over the years, but the basic 5 address foundational needs first before we go to, I'd say, lesser needs. But as he gets to the top of the pyramid, we're talking about self-actualization. So the foundation here being for Maslow's hierarchy of needs is the fact that it's hard to think about anything else until you've established, do I have water to drink? Do I have food to eat? Do I have a roof over my head? Right? I'm not going to think about the next movie I'm going to see unless I know that I have my basic physiological needs met. And when it comes to fitness, what we're going to talk about today is about what are the foundational, and then moving up the tier. Okay, what are the need to haves right away versus the nice to haves that we can work towards when it comes to achieving your fitness goals. So I'm excited to start this series with building your fitness pyramid.
Absolutely. And as you said, when you think about the bottom level, what are the things that you have to have before you do a fitness journey? This isn't even just fitness journey it's just life in general. But number 1 was the physiological needs. And as you said, Ken, you need to be able to have food. You need to be able to have water. You need to be able to think about your physical health. So when you really are looking at a fitness journey, shouldn't just be a competition. It shouldn't be anything like that. It's what do you need in your lifestyle in order to live a healthier life? Well, if you're going to start this and you think about the bottom level of being successful through your fitness journey, no matter what your end goal may be, it's going to be looking at planning, meal planning. What are you going to eat? What is the calories that you need in order to, if it's a weight loss program, how much are you going to be burning, but how much do you need to eat in order to maintain a calorie deficit, but yet still not deprive yourself of food, because food is very important. And then what type of meal are you going to eat? Are you doing a specific diet? Are you doing just you're watching your calories and thinking about the food that you're going to be eating? So number 1 is really just looking at what is your plan? And I think that's sometimes where people go wrong. We just jump right into the weights. We jump into doing these classes, but we don't really think about the planning side of it. What are you going to hydrate with? How much water are you planning on drinking a day? Make that an effort. Write it down. That's what I'm doing right now. I write down. I have a certain goal of amount of water I want to drink each and every day. And when I hit a certain amount, I make little lines so I don't forget. I want to make sure that if I'm doing this, that I'm doing it and focusing on a plan. But I think another thing too, it seems so easy, but it's sleep. You and I have talked about this. We have our Garmin watches and we talk about how much we think we're sleeping if we go to bed early, but then how well did we sleep? Were we in REM for a certain amount of time? Did we just get light sleep? How many times did we wake up in the middle of the night? And it's very surprising when you look at the big general picture, but I think this is something that we fail to do in detail before we really get started.
And we need to consider the fact that we're not just talking about that new exerciser, that person that's just saying, hey, I want to make some changes in my life. I'm going to start a workout routine. I'm going to start a fitness plan. We're also talking about existing people that are working out now. So they maybe got on the road years, decades ago, but they're just eating whatever is in front of them. They are drinking when they're thirsty, or they sleep whenever they can get it, or however they've been sleeping. So looking at this foundation, that first phase, again, comparable to the physiological needs, according to Maslow's theory, well, we are talking about, you brought it up, a great point, Wendy, when it comes to planning. You got to plan what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it, how much you're going to eat, how much you're going to sleep, when you're going to sleep. Sleep hygiene, we've talked about, I don't know how many times now, Wendy, but the hydration is so important, especially when you talk about seasonal changes. You're going from warm to hot, and even during colder weathers, if you're working out more, you're exercising more, you're breathing more, you're sweating more, accommodating what your body's needs are hydration wise. So the operative phase is fail to plan to fail, but foundationally, we need to look at nutrition, hydration, and rest as the fundamental foundational needs of any fitness plan.
Well, I think it seems like it should be common sense, but I'm telling you guys, when I talk to my clients, I ask them these questions when we sit down and do the subjective information, when I'm trying to learn more about them. And the kind of blank look on their face it's pretty interesting, because especially when you're asking someone, how in tuned are you with what you're doing now in comparison to where you want to be? So it seems like you said basic, but it is really truly the fundamental foundation. But then next, when we're going up the pyramid, so when we're thinking about this, we've got the physiological needs of life. And then next, we're going to be talking about the safety needs. So when you're looking at the fitness concepts, we're thinking about strength and security. And when we say strength, we're not talking about how much can you lift, what's your one rep max. It's really trying to think about, what are you doing to plan for your workouts? Are you going to hire a personal trainer? Are you really going to be looking at injury prevention? How well are you moving? Do you have aches and pains? If so, where? And then what are we going to do on your fitness program in order to help you move better? If you guys have ever worked with an NASM personal trainer, or if you are an NASM personal trainer, one of the first things that we teach someone is how to stand in the 5 kinetic chain checkpoints. And the reason we do that is because if our feet are pointed straight ahead, our second and third toes are in line with our knees and our hips and our shoulders, and we've got a good neutral position in our neck, we're in optimal alignment to help us move better and ensuring that we have the right muscles firing at the right time in the right plane of motion, no matter what exercise we're doing, either in the gym or outside. And I think really identifying first and foremost, do you have compensations? Do you have things that don't feel right? When you wake up in the morning, how well are you moving? And then is there a change from the time you wake up to the end of the day? And if so, what did you do throughout the day to get you to move better? So Ken, I know you and I talk about this all the time, but we have people come into the gym and you see these things on social media, on different types of video channels that are out there, and they're doing these crazy techniques with weight that they shouldn't be lifting. And then people get injured and they put it on or out there for the world to see so we can make fun of it. And that's definitely not what you want to do in order to hit a workout and look at the fitness journey safely.
And I like to discuss injury prevention and safety and proper technique as far as emphasizing that from the standpoint that unless you pay some attention to it, it doesn't matter how big you want to get with muscles, how much weight you want to lose with body composition. It doesn't matter if you're hurt. You can't get there. You can't get there as fast. You can't get there as efficiently. And if you do get there, you're not going to enjoy it because you're hurt. So that safety aspect when it comes to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when we talk about injury prevention, we need to talk about balancing out your workout. So like you said, Wendy, the best case scenario, somebody who's skilled with the optimum performance training model, understands the importance, and is skilled at assessing, evaluating, determining where do we need flexibility, where do we need more range of motion, and where do we need more strength and stability. And once we can get the body a little bit more balanced, now we can look at what you're talking about, Wendy, movement efficiency. So we're basically getting you to be a little bit more coordinated with a more sound structure. So when it comes to safety, right, it's very close, in my opinion, to understanding hydration, sleep, and proper nutrition, because it doesn't matter where you're going to go if you can't get there because you're hurt. So longevity within fitness is basically going to be founded on the aspect of creating balance, not just standing on 2 feet with good stability, but muscular balance, symmetry, front, back, top to bottom, left to right. And once you do that, spine's not bearing any more weight than it has to. The spine through the hips, especially the low back, can absorb, produce, reduce force as needed when it comes to going on whatever journey you want to go on. But safety, when it comes to injury prevention and planned workouts, now more focused on your workouts and what you're going to do with form and technique, right? That's going to be right up there as far as what's important going through that your own fitness pyramid.
100%. And today on Random Fit with myself, Wendy Batts, and Ken Miller, we're talking about building your fitness pyramid. It's from Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This was something that he came up with in 1943, guys, but it's still so relevant in everything that we do, whether it's fitness, whether it's business, whether it's just our life, even though the concept and principle was built on psychology and sociology. So when we're thinking about, just as a recap, we've got the bottom the foundation. Again, that's really looking at the physiological needs of life. So sleep, eat, drink. And then we talked about safety and really looking at proper movement patterns, proper ensuring that every exercise that we do, we're doing correctly. We've got good tempos, good pace. And Ken, you talked about it and you said it perfectly. Sometimes we're unaware of our body movements. I know for myself, I think that, oh yeah, I'm moving great, or I'm walking straight, I'm doing this. And oftentimes, because I have had an injury in the past, my right foot turns out, and I don't realize it until someone points it out or takes a video of me walking my child into school and seeing that it's going in a slightly turned towards the east versus going straight north. And so sometimes it really is looking at what we have and then what we can do to fix that, because over time that's going to lead to some sort of injury or some sort of discomfort in a joint, where I know that I can fix it by foam rolling, by doing the corrective exercise stuff, going in and strength wise being smart of my exercise choices and rep ranges. So if we think about the next level, this is one that how about this? This is one that I love. And it's really looking at love and belonging. And I think this is really where the sense of community comes in. This is where, especially on the fitness side, if you don't want to go into a gym by yourself, you don't want to have a trainer, this is maybe where you're going to start to get yourself involved in spin classes or yoga classes or do some Pilates classes, whether it's part of your membership or you're just doing those alone, whether you're going with friends or doing group workouts. You just want to make sure that this type of exercise that you decide to do that your body is ready for, and that you are really careful and cautious about where you are and starting versus going in and doing something that's very explosive or lifting really heavy weights with not great fundamentals, not great mechanics, because this is where injuries. Ken, you and I talk about this all the time. There are people that have been on the couch for 10 years and they said, okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to start a fitness regimen. They join a certain group of people and they're doing some explosive Olympic lifts, but they haven't built a foundation and they get hurt and then they stop altogether. So I love this one because I think having that belonging, having that community, the camaraderie that you have, working out with friends, so you're holding each other accountable. This one to me, I love where it fits in this pyramid, but I think it's extremely important too, especially if you want to get someone motivated to continue on with their working out.
And you bring up a really good point there. If you have a group, somebody that knows when you're supposed to be in the gym because you have that class together. Now, if you're to the point where you can exchange contact information, where if you're 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late, that person is going to text you and say, "Hey, bud, where are you? We're missing you here in class." And whether you're stuck in traffic or you just got stuck on the couch, you weren't feeling it that day, knowing that people miss you at the gym or I haven't seen you in a while, even something like that. If you're just at a gym and you have your regulars at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, the regulars at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And we know how it goes. It's usually small talk. Hey, how's it going? How's work? How's the family? You get to your workout. But if that person says, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a week. What's been going on?" Well, to know that somebody misses me, right? It's always nice to be missed. But if someone's missing you, you're like, "Oh, hey, all right, I'm gonna miss my buddy," or I don't want to be that guy that always has to be called in or called out, depending on how you want to look at it. But if you're that person to where that little call can help, why not? That little text message that says, "Hey, good job. Glad you showed up. Even though you came late, great job getting out of work. Great job getting off the couch." So that sense of community is definitely important. And I bring up my Rise and Shine virtual training group, the group of gentlemen that I have that are average age is 75 years old, and they know when each other's missing. Oh, Jim's not going to be here today, or Greg's going to be here. He's going to be here a little bit late, but they keep tabs on each other. They have they've known each other for years, for one, so they already started off with that community, and then I got involved and I was put into the fold. But that sense of knowing that I'm accountable towards other people in addition to myself, that camaraderie is a lot more important than you realize. So until you get a part of a group, then you won't know. But I highly encourage, go into a group, make friends at the gym, make friends at your Pilates class, wherever you are, and you start your own community if one is not readily available or hasn't been built into the structure of how that business works. But knowing that somebody's looking out for you and you can do the same for somebody else, because maybe that one text, that one call is what they needed to get their workout in for that day. So like you, Wendy, love and belonging, very, very, very helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah. And if it can go past the gym. And that's what I tell people too. If you're working out at the gym and you're just kind of doing your own thing, I'll ask them, well, what are they doing on the social side of things? Because my father, as you guys know, unfortunately, he's aging and he's not able to play golf. However, he used to have this noon group. And on certain days of the week, these same people would meet on T1. They had this thing blocked off and they called themselves the noon group. They would show up in their little golf carts and they would take off and they would play together. And as you said, Ken, if one started not showing up, they would drive their golf carts to their house and ask them, are they okay? Because it's out of the norm for them. And in that belonging component, guys, whether you're on a team, as you know, I play tennis. If I don't show up to a lesson and they were expecting me, I get a text like, hey, are you coming? Is everything okay? And that just also makes me feel better. Like you said, having someone check in on you to make sure, oh, listen, if I say something came up, then they call me out and I don't want to miss again. So I think that one to me is a really big one. But then it also kind of fits into the next one. So when we're looking at now tier 4, so once again, the foundation is your physiological needs of what you need in life. Then we go into the safety, making sure you're doing things correctly and you're not overtraining again. That's another one too that we could talk about. Then you've got the love aspects of community, having that belonging and sense of self. Well, then it gets into your esteem needs. And I think this is one where if you set SMART goals. So again, when you think about SMART, we're talking about specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So that's what SMART means. If you can list those specific goals and you're very crystal clear, it's not a general goal, then you can also see your accomplishments as you're going through your journey. Are you hitting your weight loss goal if that's it? Are you building the muscle mass that you want? Are you putting on the weight that you're hoping to by ensuring that you're taking in the right amount of nutrition or shakes or whatever it is, depending on what those goals may be? But then you start to look at yourself. And I think that confidence and the ability to see your achievements. And as a trainer, one of the things that we do every 4 to 6 weeks is we reassess. I want to make sure that my programming for my client is as optimal as possible. Are they moving better? Are they losing weight if that's their goal or whatever it is? Am I taking circumference measurements? Do they see the difference on the scale if that's what they want? Are they fitting into their skinny jeans if that was the end goal? Are they hitting a certain goal that they told me in the very beginning that they wanted to achieve? When you do that, it makes me as the trainer feel great about the fact that they have put themselves in that position. But the client themselves then start to see those changes. And to me, it's so rewarding. And I think just having that achievement, making the little bitty progressions in order to get to the ultimate end goal, it's one of my favorite things to see. It just takes time to get there.
The smart approach to looking at your plan, looking at your fitness program is so important. I work off of the thought that a dream without a deadline is just a dream. Unless you put an end date, and when I say dream, that's I want to change my body composition. I want to bench press a certain amount of weight, squat a certain amount. I want to run a certain distance in a certain time. Put the deadline on it, because that will determine how hard you have to work, how hard or how easy your workout strategy is going to be. Because if you give me a goal like running a 5K, but you give me 2 years to do it, then, well, let's see if we can challenge ourselves a little bit more, depending on where you're coming from, of course. But if you tell, and that's very different from you telling me that I have a goal of running a 5K in a week. Two very different strategies for two very different timelines, but the goal is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, Wendy, we take all that great information that you just shared with the SMART goals, but that timeline aspect of it, when we look at achievement, you got to plan, because if your goal is to make that get the 5K, get the bench, change your body composition, put that timeline on, that actually compresses or expands all the amount of work that you have to do. But it's an exercise in discipline, as you know, so that when you set that deadline for that specific goal, now you can strategize, okay, what am I going to eat? How often am I going to work out? When am I going to sleep? So everything that we've talked about through this point is going to make that achievement, that accomplishment, that box that you're able to check off, right, that much more reasonable or realistic. So getting to this point in the pyramid, building your fitness pyramid, that timeline to get that accomplishment, to set that goal for yourself, that timeline is, in my opinion, and that's why I'm kind of harping on that aspect of the SMART goals so much, is that you set that timeline, that's going to kind of mold every other aspect of the pyramid, of the fitness pyramid that you create for yourself.
And I think on the other side of it too, I mean, there was a certain time that I wanted to hit in a half marathon. And previous years, I usually run a half every year with my family. And previous years, I just ran for the sake of running. I was trying to get my family healthy. And I thought, well, if we did this together, And every year I would run and I'm like, why am I running? I just don't like to run. Like no one's chasing me. There's no reason for me to do this. There's got to be an easier way. But when I actually sat back one year and said, you know what, I'm going to train hard and I want to hit this certain time, I really had to push myself, Ken, really had to get out there, work on my training, making sure that I was running certain distances on certain days of the week, giving myself proper recovery. But when I achieved that time, that day on race day, I went into it. I had a friend of mine that was the pacer to make sure that I didn't screw up. And it was interesting because I literally had to sprint to the end. And there were people there like, she's not going to make it. She's not going to make it. That's how close I was. When I say I set this realistic time, I pushed myself to the limit of this is me really pushing myself because I'm not a runner. I'm not a runner. I used to do sprints. That's after a 400, I was done. So the fact that now I'm running 13.1 miles, that was a big thing. But I mean, having someone there too. So all of this, when we're talking about it, I have gone through this, but that sense of accomplishment when I got my medal and I was sitting there and, they're like, hey, do you want a beer? Cause you finished. I love that. At the ending, it's like, do you want a beer? I'm like, no, I just want to sit down. But, all to their own, but it's something that I think too, that self of I did that accomplishment. It was awesome. But I think that then brings us to the peak. So now we're talking about the top of the pyramid. We said that this was 5 levels. Of course, we've gone through each level. But now when we're looking at the top, it's basically that you did it. So we're looking at your potential and fitness. Did you reach your goal in the timeline that you set? And is it something that is still very tedious and very hard and that you're just still struggling with, but you're doing it for the sake of doing it? Or now has it become your lifestyle? And if it's become your lifestyle, then you've gone through this hierarchy of needs properly. You've done it the right way. And I think then is when you kind of reevaluate your SMART goals, you push yourself to a higher limit, but it's this feeling of fulfillment and achievement that you did this. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be like some sort of competition or a certain thing that you're doing with someone. But when you actually reach that peak, there's no sense of, I don't know. I just feel like when I hit a certain goal and I can say that I did this and I did this because I wanted to do this. No one pushed me to do it. It goes that much. It goes a longer way, in my opinion. I don't even know how
it does. It definitely does. And like you, Wendy, when you talk about the half marathon, when I ran my first half marathon, my buddy, they walked me through it. And the first thing they said is like, hey, don't worry about time. Just get, they encouraged me. They said, just get through the training, get yourself off the couch, start running and get through the race. So as we're talking about going through the fitness version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're talking about building your fitness pyramid. And with this self-actualization tier, this 5th tier, when it came to me running that first half marathon, all I wanted to do is just finish, just cross the finish line, rejoice in that, acknowledge your accomplishments, and then we can talk about the next one. And like what you mentioned, Wendy, it's the next one and the next one after that is where I started to set specific goals for myself as far as I wanted to finish sub whatever time it was at the time. And then the next one, I wanted to finish even faster than that. So now I'm really tapping into, okay, what can my body do? If I can finish it in this amount of time, then, well, how much faster can I run? So as I kept chipping away 5 minutes off from the first race to the second one, and then from the second to the third, I chipped off another 10 minutes off of that. So I was able to fine tune what I was doing for my training, my eating, my rest and recovery. And then every other time after that, until I got to the point where, you know what, I was Wendy, I was getting off the couch 2 weeks before and then training and then starting to train. And then I figured, you know what, if I'm going to only train for 2 weeks, I'm kind of defeating the purpose. So I had to find another purpose for myself, but I digress. When it came
I've been there. And I would still go run it. And then I would hate myself. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm only halfway through this. This is terrible.
I know. At mile 9, you're just,
Oh yeah.
why?
Well,
Wow.
and I think I have mentioned this before. I ran a marathon thinking that I was training correctly and didn't have a running coach, but I would go on the weekends and I worked during the week. I bartended on the weekends because I had to pay my bills as well. And then I would get up in the morning. I would go running with a girlfriend who was a runner. So we were talking and then we would go pig out afterwards. We had a really good time. Well, race day came. I hit 16 miles and thought I was going to die, Ken. And then I said, oh my gosh, I've got 10.2 to go. So don't be Wendy. You know, I know NASM says don't be Bob. Don't be Wendy if you're going to try to do something. You need to train accordingly. But if you follow this Maslow's hierarchy of needs and you really think about what are your fundamentals, what's the foundation. I am a huge believer of cross training. So if you're actually working towards a marathon or a half marathon or doing something outdoors, you need to combine that with proper foam rolling, proper stretching, proper strength training, doing cross training. So not always running, maybe doing some rowing, maybe doing some swimming, things to challenge your body different ways. Because on race day, if it is a race that you're striving to achieve, you're going to have better results because your body has been doing different things, working different muscles, challenging your cardiorespiratory system as well. And so don't just keep doing the same thing, because that repetitive motion over and over can then lead to injuries and then bring you back to what we were talking about on the second tier, where you got to think about what's safe and what's right. So Ken, I was glad that you brought this up. Again, this is episode 1 of 3. And so I thought this one is super important, very relevant, of course, on Random Fit. And I'm excited for the next 2 as well.
That's right. And thanks, Wendy, for sharing your insight, especially on this fitness version of the hierarchy needs. But as we get into athletics and performance, and then wellness, longevity as the other 2 episode topics. But I look forward to continuing this conversation. So for those of you listening to us here on Random Fit with both Wendy Batts and I, Ken Miller, thank you so much for spending your time with us. If you like what you heard on this episode, stay tuned for the other 2. But like, follow, subscribe, download, and more importantly, share if you like what we had to say about these 5 tiers and the fitness version of it. But until next time, everybody, take care and be well.